First, I just want to say I feel like my face looks like Elaine in that episode of Seinfeld where she's stuck in the bagel store with the steam pipe broken because it's so strange, strangely humid today that like my face has just melted. So I apologize for that. I can't control the weather. So I'm gonna do some little capsule reviews of several Franchot Tone movies that I actually watched between Tuesday and Wednesday, but I wanted to do them all together, and I finished watching them so late last night that I didn't have time to review them. So these were watched on Tuesday and Wednesday. The first one was 1936's Exclusive Story, and it co-stars Madge Evans and Joseph Kalea. Basically, Madge Evans plays the daughter of a grocery store owner who is being rooked into not playing the numbers racket, but being like part of the numbers racket, and she and her father are upset that they are like stuck taking people's food money for gambling, and she tries to give the exclusive story about how these people are being strong armed to the newspaper at which Franchot Tone works. However, they're like, it's not a good story until the man they've tried to sell their store to so they can get out of this is murdered by the mob, and then it becomes more of a story. A lot of other things happen, including like shipping and places getting blown up and all kinds of stuff. It's one of those 30s films with like 12 different plots that all kind of tie in together, including a romance between Franchot Tone and Madge Evans. It's good. It's not one of my favorite Franchot Tone films, but he is charming in it, and he has great chemistry with Madge. So I recommend it for that reason. The next one I watched was 1942's The Wife Takes a Flyer. This was a strange one. It's Franchot Tone and Joan Bennett, and it is a propaganda film during the war. Franchot Tone is an RAF flyer who has been downed in, I believe it's Holland, and Joan Bennett is supposed to be Dutch, and she's trying to divorce her husband, who is in an asylum for being an alcoholic. But when the Nazis take over their house, she has to pretend that Franchot Tone is her husband so that he does not get stuck in a war prison. And there's so many jokes about Nazis in this movie, and it is hard to watch. It is really hard to watch. It feels so tone deaf now, especially when you look back at some of these better sort of war satires like the Great Dictator and To Be or Not to Be. This one is hard to watch. And they shoehorn this rom-com stuff into it, and it's just a little cringy, actually. But it would make an interesting, I guess, triple with those other films, just to look at the way in which Hollywood tried to make the Nazi Party ridiculous in order to boost morale. But watching it in a post we know what happened in the Holocaust world, it's hard to go, ha ha, yeah, these Nazis, they're so dumb, when they were like mass murdering people. So it was probably a lot easier to watch this film in 1942 without realizing that like the people you're making fun of are mass murderers. It's hard to watch it in that perspective, or that post perspective. The next film I watched was 1936's The King Steps Out. This is directed by Joseph von Sternberg, and it is like that Marlene Dietrich von Sternberg movie I watched a few weeks ago. Does not feel like any of his other films. It is a comedy, but also a musical, but like Grace Moore does the singing. She's playing Princess Elizabeth. This is based on Austria's Queen Sissy, or Princess Sissy. So if you're familiar with the Sissy films with Romy Schneider, I can't tell if this is recording anymore. Hopefully it is. Okay, it froze. If you're familiar with the Romy Schneider Sissy movies, it's the same historical person, except Grace Moore sings like Jeanette MacDonald, and if you know me, you know that I hate Jeanette MacDonald. It's that warbling soprano music that just, ooh. And I don't like musicals in general, but those musicals I hate more than anything. So this was really hard to watch. However, Franchot Tone has curly, beautiful curly hair, and that's fun to watch. So, but it's just it pales in comparison to most of von Sternberg's films. So it's strange him trying to make this like singing comedy. The next film I watched was The Unguarded Hour. It is Franchot Tone, Loretta Young, Louis Stone, and Roland Young. And in it, Franchot Tone is a barrister, I believe, or some sort of um, attorney in England, and he's on a trip with his wife, and his wife, someone tries to blackmail his wife, or him through his wife, because he's about to become in politics, I don't know, England, and she tries to pay it off discreetly, but accidentally becomes the only witness to a possible murder, and eventually Franchot Tone's character is at the trial of is prosecuting or defending, I'm not really sure, the guy who maybe murdered his wife, and they're trying to find this mysterious woman. It turns out it's Loretta Young, and then all kinds of other shenanigans ensue, and maybe Franchot Tone is cheating on her. You're not sure until you get to the very end. And it's a mixture of like courtroom drama and romantic drama, and they have great chemistry. And again, Franchot is very charming in the film, and Loretta Young has those big eyes, so that's fun. The next film I watched was 1934's Gentlemen Are Born. This was a not quite pre-code, but has clearly was starting development during the pre-code era, and then they had to make it less pre-codey. It follows three boys played by Franchot Tone, or four boys played by Franchot Tone, Brox Alexander, Dick Foran, and Robert Light as they graduate from college into the Great Depression and realize that adulthood sucks. It also co-stars Jean Muir, Margaret Lindsay, and Anne Dvorak as the women that they love. Franchot Tone's character is trying to be a newspaper man. He falls in love with his friend's sister, but his friend and his friend's sister are too rich for him, so her family doesn't like him. Everyone discovers that when you get married, everything is expensive. Through his job as a newspaperman, he's able to help them in several ways. Mostly their lives get worse and worse and worse until the very end, when you think things are going to be terrible even for Franchot Tone, but he's Franchot Tone, so he ends up with a happy ending while everyone else kind of doesn't. It's definitely the opposite of those musicals made during the Great Depression that were yay, everything's beautiful, watch the sparkles. This is everything is terrible, and it's terrible, and watch these people go through the terrible things that you're going through. So I don't know how popular a film like this could have been back then, because it's I don't want to see that. He's really the crux of this film. Some of the ways that it feels sort of pre-Cody is there's suicide at one point. A woman gets fired for at first potentially being promiscuous, but then really fired because she's married. So it's one of those interesting looks at if you're married in back in those days, you lost your job, and there's a whole bunch of films like that, and a whole bunch of stories about women trying to be in the workforce and unable to, because if you're married, you are being supported, but oftentimes their husbands couldn't find work either, and it's this catch-22 that couples would get stuck in. Very interesting. The next one I watched was Between Two Women. It is literally set in a general hospital. It stars Franchot Tone, Virginia Bruce, and Maureen O'Sullivan as the two women. One is a debutante. One is debutante. One is a nurse. He is torn between them both. The nurse is married, but she's in an abusive marriage, and she even shows up in sunglasses at one point. And Virginia Bruce is a party girl and is not the right kind of person that a rising surgeon should marry. And it really feels like this is what General Hospital and all those hospital soaps came from. It is so soapy. I loved it. It's terrible, and I loved it so much. And if you love soap operas, you will love this movie. The last film I watched was 1957's Uncle Vanya. Obviously, it is an adaptation of Chekhov's Uncle Vanya. It was filmed concurrently with the cast of a New York stage production that Franchot Tone was in, and he co-directed it with John Goetz. And he does not play Uncle Vanya. He plays the doctor, and it is quite a good film. I really enjoyed it. It really shows you that Franchot started in theater, and he started with the group theater, and he can play all of these characters, and it's wonderful to see him playing like this kind of acting, and it makes me kind of wish I could see him on the theater, but also it makes me wish that he hadn't got stuck in all of these sort of romantic dramas. Not that he's bad in them, he's great in them, but it's one of those, like, if he had been a few decades later, he would have gotten to play such a range of roles, and it's unfortunate that he got to do so few when he was really popular, but it's fun to see that he was capable of a range, and I was grateful to see this film because it's a hard to find film, and I really enjoyed it, and you should seek all of these films out. They're still on the Watch TCM app until next Tuesday, and quite a few of them are on DVD from Warner Archive Collection. Yay, Franchot Tone.